What's up YouTube, and welcome to another tutorial where today I'm going to go ahead and show you how you can create this marble black, white and gold wallpaper. Now with this design you can see I've got a white marble with black lines and gold accents. You can go ahead and do the opposite if you want, with black background and white lines. It's just as simple as that. So you can go ahead and create fun different variations of this design. You're going to need the link to the image ready on your browser of choice that I provided again. It's the gold texture, and I'll walk you through, of course, the entire process step by step. It's really fun, it's really easy, and I hope you enjoy it and make some wallpapers for your iPad. As always, make sure though to tag me in your finished creations over on Instagram should you share them on there. I'd love to see your finished creations. And if you want even more tutorials from me, not only do I post weekly tutorials here on my YouTube channel, but I also post 3 more every single month to my Patreon supporters, and that catalogue of exclusive tutorials sits at well over 100 at the time of recording. Anyway, I'll leave a link to that in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy today's tutorial and let's get started. So once you've created your canvas, there's no palette, of course. The only thing we need to do is start drawing in our lines. Now it's really important for you to note that you can actually do this the opposite way around. You can have your background color set to black, for example, and then your color set to white, and then get to work with your line work. I'm going to do it the opposite way around. I want to stick to what you can see on the thumbnail. So my background color is going to remain as white, and my color is going to be set to black at the bottom of the disc here. So I urge you to maybe afterwards, try it again with the opposite variation. We're then going to go to our brush, and our brush of choice for today is going to be the Abstract collection, and it's going to be the membrane brush. Now with the brush set to maximum size, we're going to get started with laying our design out. Now I want to kind of basically do something like this, where it's going to go corner to corner here, but it's going to leave the opposite corners. And I want to have 2 dark spots on either side. So I'm going to start here with a lot of pressure, just sort of draw in a little something like this. And then really light pressure, I'm going to just bring my pen across the screen. Very, very light. And then occasionally just press a little bit firmer here and there, just to sort of introduce some darker lines. This blob here of color needs to be expanded on a little bit. It needs to have a little bit of kind of direction to it. There we go. And it's very, very random. You are chucking color in, and the liquefy is where it's all going to come together. But for now, we're just trying to work in some variation on colors, and maybe we sort of darken up a tiny little bit through here, keeping it nice and light. And then just like these little light lines zigzagging across your screen. Again, leave the corners nice and sort of empty. You don't want to sort of add in too much in these 2 corners. That way you get the background, just have some space just to live. Now that's looking quite sort of symmetrical, so maybe we'll just introduce like a little bit of darkness here. You want to avoid adding too much of the very, very dark tones, and vice versa. If you're using the opposite variation, you don't want to add in too many of the lighter sort of blocky areas. So again, if you're doing it in the opposite orientation, all you need to do is add in, the white, but in a similar fashion to how we're doing this now. I'm just going to see what we come up with. That looks pretty good in terms of sort of the line work of everything. We've got loads of these membrane lines. They're what really helps the liquefy in a moment. So I'm just going to add in 1 little stroke down here, and then another very faint one there, and another very faint one there. That way we've got something in those areas. Now the next step before we get to liquefy is adding in the gold effects. So let's go ahead and open up Google Chrome to the link that I've provided. Hold down on the image, go to the option of copy image, then go ahead and go back into Procreate, swipe down with 3 fingers, go to the option of paste, and it'll ask you, do you want to paste? Allow paste, and there you go, you've got your image. Now I'm just going to rotate it a couple of times to make it full screen. So I'm just going to scale this up. There we go, and I'm going to tap on my cursor when I'm done. Now I just want to adjust the gold, so we're going to go up to our adjustments, hue, saturation and brightness. We're going to bump the hue up to 51%. We're going to bring the saturation down to around about sort of 37%, and the brightness can come up a little bit as well, up to 55. And that way we get a bit more of a yellowy tone. Then tap on your adjustments when you're done. So you've got your gold in play. What we now need to do is add a mask to this. So we're going to tap on it, we'll add a mask to it, and we'll tap on the mask and invert it to black. So now all of the layer is hidden. Now it's really important that you are tapped on the mask here, and your color here is double tapped in the top left to select white. So tapping away, we're going to go ahead and we're going to bring the brush size down to, starting off with a 26% brush size. I want you to take a look at some of the lines in here and then introduce some gold. So as you're drawing in, what you're doing is you're revealing part of that image again, because the black mask is hiding everything, and now we're painting in white, we're showing what we want to show. So I'm going to bring in some gold, and I'm following a lot of the curvature of some of these lines. So I'm just going to stroke some in there. Feel free to go over the top of it a couple of times. if you want to sort of reveal it and really punch out that gold. And another size that we'll drop to is a 9%. So you want to go ahead and kind of balance these out. You want to kind of follow a couple of really thin lines here with some gold. And there's not really sort of a trick to it. You just want to sort of pick random lines that you can see and just introduce that gold little bit on top of them or below them or whatever. And you can also go ahead and introduce additional gold lines. So maybe you want to draw some in parallel to some of these lines. And some of them you may want to just sort of introduce in a completely different space. It's totally up to you. You want to have some fun with it. It's all meant to be nice and random. One thing you can then do is also kind of circular motion with your pen here, just to make sure it's not like a line. You can sort of circular motion it and make it a little bit more rough on the edges. You know, wobble your pen up and down a tiny bit. Of course, Liquefy in a moment will do that for us anyway. But this just makes some of your lines a little bit less, you know, rigid, a little bit less stern. Let's just go ahead and introduce like a bit of gold into there and let that kind of run off as if we followed a line. And then maybe there's a nice big gold patch in here, and then we can go on top of that dark line. Again, everybody's is going to look very different. I think I would have mentioned that by now, but everybody's will look very different, so you don't need to worry that yours looks different to mine. The principles are exactly the same. So I'm going to find some more lines. I'm going to run some gold in through here. And we're just going to keep applying the gold at different brush sizes. Anywhere in between as well is fine, like a 15% brush size. Wherever you need to try and apply the color, it's totally up to you. So I'm just going to wiggle my pen in certain areas just to sort of break down the gold a little bit more. And lots of sort of random small lines will look really, really good later on. So introduce your gold wherever you feel is necessary. Bring the brush size down to smaller sizes. I urge you also to somewhere up here maybe, you know, let's bring in a bit of gold right off the edge there and let that come across like so. And then maybe there's like a smaller sort of parallel thin one like so. What about this one down here? Can we introduce a bit of gold here and then kind of let that break off? It's almost like we're creating branches, just following the gold or the dark lines to introduce the gold. There we go. Lots of gold. Looks awesome. Lovely stuff. And then maybe a couple sort of parallel again, maybe a bit chunkier to one another. Maybe even like this one breaks off in a couple of different angles. You know, maybe it comes down like here, goes round with a few little dots above it. I want to make sure I've got some larger sections. So I'm going to go back to the 26% and I'm going to try and sort of chunk this one out in the middle a little bit more, introducing a bit more gold on there. So it's quite a dominant sort of streak of the gold. Let's put another one up in here, coming along this edge. And then maybe a little one that kind of runs in from the side. They're nice and parallel to each other already because of the brush. That looks cool. Following some of those lines of the membrane brush. Seeing what we come up with. So you don't want to kind of overdo this. You can always introduce more afterwards. So for the minute, let's go ahead and just sort of leave it at this kind of sort of space like this. Now, if you want to introduce more later on, the only thing I urge you to do right now is to swipe this inserted image to the left and duplicate it. Then go to the mask for the very top one. So go to the top one, tap on the mask, clear it. So it's now sort of all of those line works have disappeared. Then tap on it and invert it back to black. And then you're ready to go later on. Just turn this one off at the top for a moment. So just this layer here. Now the ones underneath, you've got your black lines and you've got your gold. You're going to want to pinch those together onto one layer now. So all of that's been actioned and good to go. At this point, we then go up to our adjustments. We go to Liquefy. And we're going to use the option of push, maybe a couple of 12s potentially, and other options, but primarily push. And you can see a few of my settings. Now, these are somewhat important because, watch this, if I push, look at how it ripples away like water. It continues on way after my push has happened. That's what we want. We want to really sort of allow it just to run like water almost. The size will vary. You're going to want to bring it up and down, but that's what I'm going to roll with to start with. And at this point, you can really have some fun now creating your marble design. So you can push it off to the side. Now, this is a couple of things to note. This one here, if you push in from the outside too much, you're going to get this kind of effect where it tries to fill the gap. So try and sort of push that around to a point where you're happy with it. Keep an eye on all of those lines wherever they kind of appear. You may want to bring the brush size down to like a 60% and just start pushing your color around, bring it across the page, create cool curvy avenues, maybe expand on them a little bit. Look at that already. I think you're going to want to create multiple versions of this. So please, You know, don't sort of take this as the final version that you do. I think you're going to want to create multiple variations. I just think it's so fun and mesmerizing just to push all this around, create some beautiful wallpapers for your iPad or your phone, depending on what size you want to make your canvas. Maybe we can go ahead and kind of crush this all into here. But look at how all those membrane lines expand to give you all of these beautiful effects. Now, obviously, I've kind of got rid of the dark area here, so I'm going to bring that back in a little bit more. And just look at how easy it was to create something as beautiful as that. Maybe you want to leave like a large space of white here. Maybe you want to bring it all the way down and allow it to kind of come back in, and maybe bring that down as well. It's so fun, so mesmerizing, and you can create some really beautiful designs. Let's see what we can come up with a little bit more. Let's maybe introduce some harsher kind of curves in here. Oh, look at how that ran up there. That's lovely. And when you're happy with your work, just simply go ahead and tap on your adjustments when you're done. Now, one thing you can do is we can go ahead and introduce more gold. So you can go back up to that additional layer at the top. Make sure you're on the mask and your color is set to white. Go back to your brush and again, make sure it's membrane. Bring it down to a really small size though, like 9%. And make sure you are on the mask here, and we've checked this box to bring in the layer again. So check this box, make sure you're on the mask, and then you can go back in now, and maybe even on top of some of the gold lines, you maybe want to introduce them a little bit more again. I urge you to go as small as like a 4 or 5% as well, and just get in there on top of some of the gold. Some of them will distort quite a lot, such as here, where you've got like a little bit of kind of the push of the liquefy. And maybe you want to get in there and kind of just draw them back in almost and kind of crisp them up. So that will add you a little bit more detail. And then I also urge you to maybe just do some of these like little dots. Maybe bring the brush size up a tiny bit more. Do some dots, some little sort of scuffs and little dashes of gold in here. And to me, these look fantastic on top because you've got all your wavy lines now. These gold areas are just other little areas of kind of splash of color. So you can tap away, introducing beautiful bits of gold in here and just keep adding detail after detail after detail. You know, down here, again, where the lines have got a little bit kind of blurry almost, add some color on top of them. You're revealing that photograph underneath. So you're using kind of the layer that we sort of liquefied as kind of a blueprint, as a guide almost. And now you can get in here, add in lots of small details. I urge you to spend as long as you can doing this. It really will pay off. You know, bring back in the gold where you want, and maybe on the edges just make sure you kind of tap and push a tiny bit just to sort of break down the solidness potentially of the membrane brush that we're reintroducing here. And then on these smaller ends here, for example, I'm going to get really small with my brush size and see if I can kind of follow some of these new lines that have been created from the liquefy. Lots of different avenues, lots of different areas of fun that can be had with this design. And then if you end up getting any of those lines that I mentioned that come off from the end, you can quickly cover them up if you can with like a line runs towards them and lots of dashes and scrapes, just like literally covering over the top of that line. It's just a collection of gold, maybe even a round circle or something like that, and a little bit off to the edge, and you would never know that that line is actually sort of a quirky extension of sort of the liquefy. Over here we've got lots and lots of work. So again, have some fun with it, create whatever you can with your design, and all the levels of detail that can be introduced here will really take it to that next level. And then when you're fully done, you can then go up to your layers, you can pinch those together. And then one final little trick that you can do is if you go up to your adjustments, you go to hue, saturation and brightness. If you go ahead and punch up the saturation here, you can make that gold really, really vibrant. So it's up to you how kind of gold you want to make it. You could go up to something really nice and sort of colorful, round about sort of the 70% mark, or if not higher. 70 for me looks pretty good. I'll pinch with 2 fingers, I'll go full screen with 4, and we end up with today's finished design. So I hope you enjoyed this kind of simple marble wallpaper design. As always, make sure to tag me in your finished creations over on Instagram. I can't wait to see what you came up with yours. If you want even more tutorials from me, you can come and join me over on Patreon, where I post 3 exclusive tutorials to my Patreon supporters every single month. You can have your name featured in videos, sneak peeks, early access, and much, much more. So check that out using the link in the description down below. And if you like this video here on YouTube, you'll love this frosted glass wallpaper tutorial, as well as a playlist of all of my Procreate tutorials. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.